Welcome to the first episode of Here's the Point with Caden Kelly. This is a supplemental podcast to my main podcast uh, called Book Club with Caden Kelly. For a while now, I've been reading a different nonfiction book every week, and I talk about it. And the intention is to become happier and healthier and wiser and wealthier. So I read financial books and I read philosophy books and personal development, self-help books, all the things to help me become a better person. The podcast is supposed to keep me accountable to myself. So I read the books and then I stream it live on YouTube and Facebook and Twitch. And then I post the episode on Spotify and Apple Podcasts the next day. So I stream it live Mondays, 8 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, early because we get shit done around here. And then I post it the next day on Tuesdays at 8 a.m. And I realized that podcast, it's long form. Some of the books that I read are, there are like 8 hours, 6-hour books. And then this one that we're going to do today was 28 hours. And instead of going longer to cover more content, I'm going to try to go shorter because even an hour and a half podcast can be exhausting. So I want to get the same point across, but I want to do it in 15 minutes or less. That's what I'm trying to do. So we're going to talk about the point. So here's the point. This last week, well, I should say two. That podcast you can find on Spotify, like I said, Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Book Club with Caden Kelly, if you're interested in the book and want to hear more discussion on it. You can find all of my socials and links to the podcast, to each podcast on my blog, Caden Kelly's blog.wordpress.com. And you found me, so you should know how to spell my name, but just in case you don't, it's KAIDENKELLY. So you'll find links to Book Club, and you'll find my Facebook. It's called Caden's Podcast. You'll find access to all my other podcasts or all of my podcast content on Facebook and YouTube under Caden's Podcast. So, and YouTube might even just be Caden Kelly. I'm doing this all by myself. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I love the journey that I've been on to improve myself. And I love trying to inspire others to be better, make better decisions, to strengthen their critical thinking ability, to challenge their beliefs, their opinions, and make better decisions, to be healthier, happier, wealthier, and wiser. So today, we're going to jump into the first episode of Here's the Point of Enlightenment Now by Steven Pinker, The Case for Reason, Science, Humanism, and Progress. Again, this was a lengthy book, very thick and very thin words, very thin spacing. So I did the audiobook, I listened to it and read at the same time sometimes when I can. Took about, if you're going just at regular speed, 28 hours, I think. So about the author, Steven Pinker is Johnstone Family Professor of Psychology at Harvard, where he conducts research on cognition, language, and social relations. He has several prize-winning books. He has been elected to the National Academy of Sciences, has won many prizes for his teaching and research, and is listed as one of the world's most influential thinkers by Time, Foreign Policy, and other magazines. So a very smart guy. Very well versed. The whole book, you got one thing that is the only way I could do this in 15 minutes, I think, is just I'm going to hit on the main points. In Book Club, I take notes of the book as I read it, and I go through all of my points. But right now, I think I'm just going to improvise and try to cover the main ideas from each part, from each chapter, or maybe not even each chapter, mainly just each part, I suppose, and help explain his book. So the case for science, reason, humanism, and progress that Steven Pinker makes is to explain how these things that came from the Enlightenment helped elevate humans out of shitty living conditions, and has dramatically improved the quality of life that humans experienced then, and how these principles continue to help human conditions, health, longevity, everything. So that's the point. Let's do it 15 minutes or less, right? And we've already started, so probably like 10 minutes or less now at this point. Gotta do this fast. And it's not fair. It's a 26-hour book, but we're going to do it fast. So anyway, the Enlightenment, originally coined by Kant, philosopher Kant, I think it's Immanuel Kant, explained that there's either he explained it or Pinker coined these 4 themes to the Enlightenment: reason, science, humanism, and progress. So we're going to look at how he looks at how those have improved the quality of life across the board for all humans. And we're going to do so regardless of what popular opinion suggests. So there's he calls it the availability heuristic. News media, social media, they talk about everything that happens, and some people have agendas, and some people are non-biased and can look at news and information and convey it in a very neutral manner. But regardless, he explains humans are preconditioned to react more dramatically or more sensitively to bad news than we are to good news. So, and there's the media industry knows this, so they a lot of people will exploit this human tendency to cling to bad news, like Facebook does it. I think it's been revealed that Facebook's algorithm is designed not to they don't put happy things in front of people. To get the most engagement out of people, they put what they disagree with in front of them. And their algorithm figures that out as they engage with Facebook. So Facebook is able to create large engagement by producing or sharing content that people disagree with. I got to do this really short, really fast, I guess. But that's the availability heuristic, where we have access to tons of bad news today. So we think the world is in really bad shape, but it's not. That's the point. The world is actually getting better as the years go on, despite what we think with all of this access to bad news. The world is actually getting better. This is his case. So the book that's part 1, the Enlightenment. Reason, science, humanism, and progress have made the world better. And despite what we think, what we believe, what we hear from the news, all of this. So that's part 1 of the book. Part 2 is called Progress. And I think the best way I can explain this chapter this part is to read each title heading. He takes pretty much the whole human existence and breaks them down into chapters and explains how these 4 tenets, reason, science, humanism, and progress, have helped the human condition, have helped in this area. So, for example, the first one that he discusses is called Life. The chapter title is Life. So humanism, reason, science, and progress have expanded lifespan across the board in all nations. I hope that I'm making sense. So lifespan has increased. People are living longer. People are healthier. People have more access to food, to nutritious food. More wealth is being distributed to countries and to individuals. Chapter 9 is called Inequality, and an interesting thing about inequality is not, in his words, is not that inequality is diminishing financially. Rather, inequality is actually growing. The wealthy are becoming wealthier, but the poorer are not becoming poorer. The poor are also becoming wealthier, but the gap is getting wider. And he explains that the moral dilemma is with financial inequality is not to take from the rich and give to the poor so everyone has the same amount of money. He says that as the rich people get richer, they have more money to distribute it and to help to give to charities and to do good things, to create businesses, to provide jobs, to innovate and to create. So he says morally, as the inequality, that financial inequality gap grows, we're morally and ethically responsible to lift people out of poverty. That's the caveat. That's what's so. I think that's this chapter is very interesting that way. We don't need to decrease the wealth inequality gap. We need to continue to lift people out of poverty. And he says that the best way to lift people out of poverty is for nations to increase their wealth. And he says, the chapter right before, chapter 8, is that everyone's getting wealthier, countries and people. So inequality gap might be growing financially, but people are getting richer and being lifted out of poverty, which is the point. That's the win. The environment, he says, due to contrary belief that the environment is actually getting healthier. It's still not, of course, none of these things are perfectly fixed. But he says that we're not trending downward in our climate. We're trending upward positively. Things are getting better as the years go on. Again, I guess I should say this book was published in 2016, I think. So it's been 6 years. I'm sure 2018. So 4 years. What's changed in 4 years? Probably not much regarding the data, but that's the point. The environment's getting better. There's more peace across the world. There's more safety across the world. There's less terrorism. Democracy is spreading across the world. And I think in that chapter he talks about markets. The free market societies are one of the best way. I guess that kind of has to do with inequality too. Markets are spreading, so people are becoming. They have more access to opportunity to increase their circumstances. Equal rights are being distributed, like women's rights, gay rights. Chapter 16 is knowledge. People are getting smarter, which is a huge indicator of well-being in countries and communities. Quality of life is improving. Happiness is improving. This is all worldwide. Again, he has data and science to support this. Existential threats like aliens are decreasing. That's part 2. Those are all the major points for how the Enlightenment is improving human quality, human life. And then part 3 is he addresses concerns regarding these tenets, concerns with reason, with science, and with humanism. And the consensus is we as humans have biases, we have our own opinions, we have beliefs, we cling to our own thoughts of the world, and usually at the expense of our well-being, our family's well-being, our community's well-being, and the world's well-being because of our beliefs. A good example is like religion. We back in the old day, before science, people blamed God for the bad things that happened to them, or they blamed themselves for their sins because God is punishing them for their sins, or God would reward you for your good doings, your good deeds, and give you bountiful crops. But now we know that today with science that there's climate patterns, and sometimes I'm not a fucking scientist, but sometimes things grow, sometimes things don't grow, and there's famine that sweeps over lands, and it's not God, it's science. There's things that occur in the world. But the point of part 3 is really we have our own biases, our own beliefs, and we neglect the data and the science in all aspects to some extent because of our own opinions and our own ego. And I talk about ego in another book. So to continue to move forward, to progress, we need to abandon our beliefs that are directly discredited or disproved, and we need to embrace our are embrace good beliefs, right? Or not embrace good beliefs, but embrace data and science that are good for humanity, good for ourselves, good for our world. That is Steven Pinker's Enlightenment Now. If you liked any of this, go listen to the longer discussion in Book Club with Caden Kelly, and you can find more of my content on all of my social medias here at the video or at cadenkellysblog.wordpress.com. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.